Welcome to the SEC Unfiltered platform. I appreciate you guys listening to all our content on all our channels, all our social media platforms. For myself and everyone here at the SEC Unfiltered platform, I appreciate you. I know I'm speaking for them as well. But I am your host, Dave Shumate, longtime SEC personnel, recruiting staffer, whatever you want to call it, 7-8 years experience in the Southeastern Conference football buildings. I'm here to give you, for this specific segment, I'm here to give you the top 5 impact players for the Arkansas Razorbacks heading in to 2024. But as you know, guys, first, we got to pay some bills. And with that, you can see below MyBookie.ag. Go use that code SECU at sign up to receive a special welcome offer on your first deposit, guys. College football is just around the season, guys. That week 0, week 1, you need to get your bets in. And if you are a bettor, go to our guys, MyBookie.ag. And again, use that code SECU for a special first-time offer. But guys, this is a segment we're running for all 16 teams. I've done Alabama previously. And if you listen to my first segment that got posted today, just about an hour or two ago, of the top 5 impact players for the Crimson Tide heading into 2024, I prefaced that segment by saying I thought that was tough. I thought it was a tougher one. You could have added a couple of different players. Parker Brailsford, the center, didn't make the top 5 list. Cutting it to 5 is tough. But for the Razorbacks, I thought this was a lot more doable. I felt good about this 5. Yeah, maybe you could have added somebody else. One comes to mind, but I think this was. I don't know if there's a lot of arguments with this one. So we're going to count down from 5 to 1. So starting at number 5, Luke Hasz, the tight end, the 6'3", 230-pounder. He's going into his second year, coming off injury. He was a true freshman impact player last year. Would have been a freshman All-American, I think. Got hurt in Arlington in that Southwest Classic game against Texas A&M. But if you go back and watch that LSU game last year, if you haven't, I highly encourage you. He was used phenomenally well by Dan Enos back there. I know Dan Enos gets a lot of crap, and a lot of it his fault. But in that specific game, they schemed him open a ton. He's going to be a weapon in today's college football, even in the NFL game. You see that now with a lot of these guys, these tight ends being schemed out in space, making guys go tackle and make plays in space. So I like what Luke Hasz has to offer from that standpoint. And I know people are going, well, everybody put up numbers on LSU. And that's true. I mean, me and probably who listens to this could have put up some points on the LSU defense last year. But my point being, you don't see a lot of true freshman tight end come to the league and have the impact he was having until, unfortunately, got hurt the very next week against Texas A&M. But I think at worst, he's going to be a top 2, top 3 offensive weapon, depending on what Andrew Armstrong and Tyrone Broden do. I think you got to factor him in this game into your system. You would be dumb not to. And Bobby Petrino's not dumb. One of the best offensive minds in the sport. He's going to utilize him to his max ability. Add in, I love he has the single digit. What I think 9 off the top of my head, his single digit number at tight end. I love it. So I think Luke Hasz hadn't been talked about enough. Probably a little underrated unless you follow Arkansas football hard, because he got hurt, 4th, 5th game of the year. So people don't really remember the middle to the end of the season. It feels like a lifetime ago, much less the first quarter, first third of the season. And Luke Hasz was putting up big numbers then. Again, I encourage you to go watch the LSU game if you're not, but I think he's going to be the 5th impact player for an Arkansas offense that should be improved. Staying on offense, going a little trench warfare here. Fernando Carmona, the offensive tackle transfer from San Jose State. Probably Arkansas, call me crazy, here's best chance of getting a first-rounder, an NFL first-round draft pick since Darren McFadden and Felix Jones, I believe, in the 2007 NFL draft. I love what he's doing. Good distribution of mass and length to his frame. Very good puller, shows the ability to go get to the second level. Go back and watch that USC game of his at San Jose State. If he can anchor, he is tough to beat in one-on-one situations. Plays a little high at times, stiff a little bit, but overall, you got to like it. Like I mentioned, the first key point I liked is like the distribution of mass and length. He can win in many different ways. Arkansas struggled up front last year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, Cody Kennedy is now gone at Mississippi State. He was the former offensive line coach under Sam Pittman. Bringing Eric Mateos, who's coming over from Baylor. I think you should see some kind of improvement. I think you should see some kind of improvement. And it can only get better. It can only be a better unit last year. And I also think Taylen Green's ability to extend plays on the outside. He feels comfortable in the pocket, feels good about his base platform, and he'll get outside and extend plays. I think that's going to help the offensive line as well. I don't think KJ Jefferson was as willing to do that last year. That's going to help guys like Carmona protect. It's going to make them look better. Now, the big question, how has he handled the speed rushers in the SEC that they did not see in the Mountain West at San Jose State? I mean, he's going to face probably the best edge rusher in the league this year, James Pierce, when Tennessee comes to town. Princely U, they play Ole Miss, the Florida transfer. He's in Oxford now. They play him. And then how does he handle the hybrid edge guys? It may play as a stand-up backer inside the box on first and second down, but they move guys like Harold Perkins out on the edge third down. You're giving up a lot of athleticism there. That's not Carmona's fault. It's just Harold Perkins is a better athlete than him. How's he going to handle those guys that are lined up in the 5 to 7 techniques on third down? That would be my question for Carmona. But it's going to be an impact player. He's going to have to there. So I think he comes in at number 4 as the top impact player, 4th top impact player for the Razorbacks heading into this season. Number 3, you're probably getting tired of it, but we're going to stay on offense. We'll get to a defensive player here in a minute, but number 3, I mentioned just a second ago, Andrew Armstrong, wide receiver. He was in Fayetteville last year, racked up 764 yards, 5 touchdowns, was a transfer from Texas A&M Commerce. He played at Commerce in 2022, was in Fayetteville last year for 2023. Some of this, I thought he put up pretty solid numbers for an underperforming offense from top to bottom of the offensive line. Inconsistent play from KJ Jefferson, who's now going to Orlando with Gus Malzahn at UCF. New OC. I think you've upgraded. You got a new offensive line coach. You brought in some more guys with Mateus and Carmona. You got a new OC with Bobby Petrino. You got a new quarterback in Taylen Green. I think that's only going to help Andrew Armstrong. And like I mentioned with Carmona, Taylen Green likes to extend plays. That's going to help Andrew Armstrong come back to the passer, come back to the football, create plays off in provision. That is going to be key for the Arkansas offense. I feel like when you go back and watch film of Taylen Green at Boise State, that's what I notice a lot. I think the issues that held back the Arkansas offense last season, like I mentioned, there's changes, big changes. So I expect a big year. Expect a big year in Fayetteville for Andrew Armstrong. Again, I don't know if he's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver. I'm not ready to do that. But even in a bad year where there was really nothing going on for that Arkansas offense, except maybe early in the year, but you just revision that Mississippi State game. But he did put up 764 yards last year. I think he averaged 13.4 yards per reception. You'd like to see the touchdown numbers go up. But I also think a healthy Luke Hasz all year will help him if he's being productive as well. So I think they need a number 1 wide receiver to step up in a unit that has everybody back. Isaac Tesla, Andrew Armstrong, guys like that, Isaiah Satigna, like stuff like that. And then I think Luke Hasz is not being talked about enough. So they have weapons on that stuff, but you need a true number 1 to establish himself. Maybe not have a massive gap from 1 to 2, but there's got to be a true number 1 that Taylen Green can really rely on in big situations, on big third downs that didn't go. Maybe that ends up being Luke Hasz. Maybe I have him too low. Maybe he should be. But I think it's going to become, like I mentioned, I think Hasz is going to be one of the top 2 weapons on offense for them, and I think Andrew Armstrong is going to be in that conversation as well. Now, moving to the other side of the ball, you've been wondering, why am I all about offense? I trust the Arkansas offense. That's why I have a lot of questions on the Arkansas defense. I don't know if I see a lot of impact players back there, but here's one coming in at number 2, Landon Jackson, the defensive end, the former LSU Tiger. He's an SEC veteran. Like I mentioned, the Arkansas defense, a big concern. Can they hold up the whole year from a depth standpoint? Not a ton of impact players, some solid players, but I think Landon Jackson is the most impact player. But he's got to take that play up. He's got to take that play up another level if the Razorbacks defense want to finish the season strong, because November's brutal. I mean, they could play arguably the top 3 offenses in the league. I'm not saying they are, but you can make a case. Texas, Ole Miss, and Missouri. All 3 are going to be good on offense. But the thing I love about Landon Jackson's game is ability to use his hands and play hand combat. He beats tackles by forcing them to make the first move, their first mistake, and combating that. That's how he wins. Go ask Elijah Pritchett and Caden Proctor. He did his damage against them in Tuscaloosa last year. I think he had 3.5 sacks. Had 3.5 sacks against those guys. Now, again, I'm not saying Landon Jackson's Myles Garrett or Nick Bosa like that. He's not going to just go beat you straight up. You're going to have to beat yourself a little bit. But he uses his hands as good as any pass rusher in the league, in the country, probably. Now, he lacks some twitch and ability to bend to just go naturally win those that you would see from like a Von Miller, who just has natural leverage. I don't think he has that because he's so big and high cut. But he can win with power. He can win with power, and then when you try to get your hands inside him, he doesn't allow it to happen because he's such a versatile player and knows he's a very polished player that knows how to utilize his hands. I love watching his film from that standpoint. He's a technician. He knows what he's doing. He has a plan. He's waiting on you to make that first mistake, almost like a snake waiting on that not calling him a snake personally, don't take this wrong, but almost like a snake waiting for that mouse just to make that first initial mistake or his first prey to make that first initial wrong move, and then he snaps. That's what he's waiting on. You're not going to get inside him. He's going to wait for you to make that mistake, and he's going to combat that with his hands, and he's going to beat you. Just go watch the Alabama game. But with that being said, Landon Jackson is going to have to be even more productive last year. He had 6.5 sacks in total last season. 3.5 came against Alabama in one game. He's going to have to elevate that game. He's going to have to elevate his game, in my opinion. Because I think if he elevates his game, they start doubling him, that helps guys like Nico Davalier, Cam Ball, and Eric Gregory on the interior. That helps everybody across the board, even the second level. So if he goes and takes that next step, that helps the entire Arkansas defense from first, second, and third. The secondary has major question marks. They don't have to cover as long. It changes how offenses have to scheme against Landon Jackson. So I think he's gonna have a big impact here coming at number 2. And number 1, same position I did with Alabama. It's the most important position in football, in all of sports, in my opinion, in all of sports, the quarterback position. And that's going to be Taylen Green. Coming in at number 1 at the quarterback position for me, the Boise State transfer. We've all heard the phrase Bobby Petrino handpicked Taylen Green. We've heard that all spring. We heard Sam Pittman echo that in Dallas at SEC Media Days. Like I mentioned, the most important player in all of sports. You got to be good. I mean, he was a 57% passer last year, 11 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. That's going to have to be improved. But I think with Bobby Petrino, you feel confident that does. Don't you? Just organically, I feel like that just feels like it's going to be an improvement. You know, he reminds me, I was texting a buddy today in the industry. It reminds me a little bit of like a Logan Thomas. Guy used to be the quarterback for Virginia Tech. He's not as thick as Logan Thomas, but Logan Thomas transitioned to tight end. I believe he played for the Redskins Commanders a little bit. But that's who he kind of reminds me of. The improvision, likes to play outside, make plays late. If you're a receiver, you'd have to love it because it feels like a play's never dead. I like that. Will that transition to the SEC? I think it will. I think it will. But I thought Logan Thomas was a good comp for him. I really did. But again, he's going to have to be an impact guy. If Arkansas is going to go win 7-8 games like people think, it's going to have to be because of Taylen Green is coming in there and helping that out. He's going to have to raise his level of game. I like what I saw, some of the surface level pieces in last year at Boise, but now if Danny Enos was back, I wouldn't be all fired up by this. I think Bobby Petrino in spring, he looked again. I don't take a lot from the spring game, but I took a lot from that. If I'm being completely honest with you, I like that a lot. Outside of that, I mean, some guys. Again, I mentioned this was a little bit easier of a list to do than Alabama. Again, we're going alphabetical order, all 16 teams, top 5 impact players for every team. Maybe Tyron Broden has a case to be on here. Jalen Braxton has a case of the safety spot having a chance to be on here. But outside of that, I feel good about these 5. Again, I mentioned it in the middle of doing this. I think you could maybe make a case of moving Luke Hasz up. But here we go. Number 5, Luke Hasz coming in at the 5th spot for the top 5 impact players for the Razorbacks in 24. Number 4, Fernando Carmona, the offensive tackle, the San Jose State transfer. Number 3, wide receiver Andrew Armstrong, his 2nd season in Fayetteville. Number 2, Landon Jackson, veteran defensive end. And then number 1, Taylen Green, the Boise State transfer. I think the Razorbacks are going to go as far as he can, take them along with a little bit of mixture. Can the defense hold up in November? If you've listened to any of my stuff, that's what I keep talking about, because the depth on defense for the Razorbacks. And traditionally, since Travis Williams has been a defensive coordinator, going back to his UCF days, the defenses have faltered in November. And some of that's depth, even at UCF. A lot of teams don't have depth now, man. Georgia has some question marks about their depth in the back end. A lot of teams do. It's just the way it is. Teams playing nickel dime as base defenses, transfer portal, etc. So, but again, like I said, you could arguably play the top 3 offenses in the league in November between Ole Miss, Texas, and Missouri. So I think that's going to be a big piece. But as you can tell, I think the impact's going to be on offense this year. New coordinator and Bobby Petrino, new quarterback Taylen Green, Luke Hasz. Hopefully he has a full healthy season. And then a new offensive line coach in Eric Mateos, and adding guys like Fernando Carmona. So I think that's going to be big there. But guys, I do appreciate you joining us here on this SEC Unfiltered segment of the top 5 impact players for the Arkansas Razorbacks. I'm your host, Dave Shumate. I hope you have a phenomenal day.